If you're busy, you just might be going broke. I got a story for you. So around 8 months ago, I did a podcast on the importance of knowing your costs. If you haven't listened to that, I'll put a link in the notes below. Make sure you check it out. But essentially is what I talked about was about 1.5 to 2 years ago. My dad, who's a locksmith, Pete, welcome back.
Thanks.
The Lockfather.
Yep.
And he had come to me and was like, hey, so we're super busy and I don't feel like the money's coming in the way it should. Like, what do you think is kind of going on, right? So you're always more of like a go get 'em kind of guy, and I've always been more of an analytical.
Exactly.
Right? Which is why you were asking me, because you're like, you're the kind of guy that wants to dig through numbers. Right? The opposite of what you want to do.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, let me take a look. So I got into QuickBooks, started looking at a bunch of stuff. And it's what I realized was a national service provider that you were doing a lot of work for. We're talking $100,000+ a year.
Right.
For over about 25 years, by the way.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Is what I realized is that he was losing money on every single lockout he was doing, which was several a day.
Yes.
Right? Several a day. And essentially is what happened, right, is over time, the costs of doing business did not keep up with the rate that they were paying you.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And so is what happened is, that $10 to $15 loss per lockout. What are we doing, 12 a day?
Well, about $250 a month.
About $250 a month, okay. And so with that going on, that was adding up, right? So he was having to do other jobs to pay for those jobs, right, to equal amount. And it got to a point where you're super busy, your schedule's always booked, pulling guys from everywhere to do all these jobs.
Right.
And you could just tell, your instinct was telling you something wasn't working.
Right.
And so once I found this data, all right, I told you, and you were like, dude, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Right? You're like,
right.
You're nuts, man. And I was like, hey, you got to call this national service provider, and you have to get more money.
Right.
Right? And you ended up talking to them, had a meeting, in-person meeting.
Yep.
And they told you were crazy.
Yep. Take a hike.
Right? Yep. They told you to take a hike. You were looking for about a 50% increase.
Yes.
Right? In the pay. And the gentleman told you no.
No,
couldn't happen. Impossible.
Right. Exactly.
And so, you were nice. You stuck around and you said, hey, I'll keep doing them for a little bit until you can find someone else. But financially, it's a loss.
Right.
Yeah. Which is nice for you to stick around even after you're losing money and they told you to take a hike.
Well, because, they got me going in business.
Yeah. You felt, you liked doing their work.
Right.
And so he cut them off. Okay, he cut them off, right? They found someone else. Took them a couple days or a month. I can't remember how long it took, but they moved on, and he made an announcement to his entire staff, and let's just say they were mad at me.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, geez, we're losing money.
Yeah, they were not happy, okay? But the facts are the facts, right? And so is what ended up happening here. And so, hold on, before I go further. So at that point, you ended up not having those jobs. You felt a slowdown.
Yep.
But you also saw more money come in.
Absolutely.
Right? Because, when your schedule's full, like for all of you out there watching, like this is what you do know. When your schedule's full and someone calls and they need you to come do an emergency rekey or something and you don't have time to get there, you're going to lose the job, right? And those are the good paying jobs out there, whatever they might be, making the keys, whatever it might be. So now that your schedule is freed up,
right,
you could do more highly profitable work.
Absolutely.
Which has worked out great.
Right.
Right? So it ended up being good. It all worked out and everyone was happy, right? Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden, okay, this is where it gets good. All of a sudden, about a month ago, 2 months ago, how long ago?
About a month and a half ago.
About a month and a half ago, this national service provider scheduled a meeting with you.
Right.
And they said, hey, we want you back.
Yeah, because nobody's willing to do it.
No one's willing to do it.
They want so much money, it's unbelievable.
And so what did you say to them?
I said, well, I'd like to do it, but I have to get at least this much. It was about 15% less than we charge cash
retail.
customers.
Okay.
Right. And I said, if not, can't do it. And then at nights, we need this much. Because my guys are tired. They don't want to work unless they're making money. And he goes, well, I don't know about night, but we'll give you the during the day.
Yeah.
And said, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything keeps going up. And if I can't make money, I can't stay in business.
And so they agreed to that new wage,
Yes.
right? Now, this is the interesting part, okay, is the wage, the price he's getting per lockout now. So if you're, okay, well, let's rewind. So when he was getting a flat rate and he asked for about 40% increase.
Right.
Right? They said, no, not going to happen. Can't do it. Year and a half goes by. The rate you're getting now is actually double that. So it's 80% more than you were getting a year and a half ago.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right? And how does that feel?
Feels like we're going to be making money again instead of losing, because your trucks need repair because you're putting lots of miles.
Yeah.
And it's just common business sense.
Absolutely. And so I have two main takeaways I want to talk about with you really quick. Takeaway number one is this. You have got to know your cost. You have got to know it, and you have to make sure you're doing profitable work. You have to take your emotions out of it, right? You felt very loyal to this company because they help you build the business.
Absolutely.
But as time went on, where they were at and where you were with the cost increasing to do business plus wages,
Right.
you couldn't do it.
Right. I was losing lots of money.
Right? Second of all, the second takeaway I want to give you is that when the relationship ended, you did not burn a bridge, right?
No,
you didn't
never
cut them
want.
off. You didn't accuse them of anything. You weren't nasty towards them.
No, you don't want to burn any bridges ever.
You kept doing those
Right.
until they could find someone else. You didn't just
Absolutely.
leave them high and dry.
Right.
And so what does that do? That kept a relationship there, right?
Absolutely.
You kept it professional, and next thing you know, a year and a half later, they come back. You have a great conversation, and now you're getting 80% more than you did from that first conversation.
For just lockouts. Yep.
For just lockouts. 80% more.
Right.
And so those are the two things. You have to know your cost. You have to make the hard decisions with those costs, and then you don't want to burn any bridges because it could be a month, could be a week, could be a year and a half.
Right.
They come back, and now you're doing business again, and things are better than ever.
Absolutely.
That's a great story, isn't it? It took a lot of guts for my dad to make those decisions that he made, but in the end, they really paid off. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, but it was a good decision all around. I would love to know what you think in the comments below, and make sure you include the hashtag LockBoss to be entered in to win one of 5 free prizes that we give away every Tuesday at 5:15 Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, no man, I lost. Where did I before I messed up? I don't even remember where I was. We gotta start over, man. Sorry.
It's all good.
Oh, I'm tired, man.
Me too.
I'm getting even more tired, yawning. All right. 15 Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Ring, ring,
Ooh,
ring.
perfect timing there.
Hello.